What happens when the life you've built crumbles in a single moment? Meet Liam, a 42-year-old architect, whose world is shattered the day he comes home early, unannounced. The betrayal he discovers will force him to confront his wife, his teenage daughter, and himself in ways he never imagined. This is a story of heartbreak, resilience, and the pursuit of self-worth. Liam Carter's life had always followed a carefully drawn blueprint, much like the buildings he designed. At 42, he was proud of his success as an architect and the family he believed he had built with unwavering love and dedication. On a crisp Thursday afternoon, Liam wrapped up a major project ahead of schedule and decided to surprise his wife, Ava. With her favorite bouquet of lilies in hand, he imagined her joy at seeing him home early, a rarity in their otherwise busy lives. As he pulled into the driveway, the house was unusually quiet, devoid of the soft hum of the TV or the familiar clink of dishes. He dismissed it as Ava being engrossed in a book or taking a nap. But as he climbed the stairs, a strange sound reached his ears, a laugh, unfamiliar yet oddly intimate. Heart pounding, Liam followed the sound to their bedroom. Pushing open the door, he froze. There was Ava, tangled with a much younger man, their startled expressions quickly giving way to guilt. The lilies fell from Liam's trembling hands, petals scattering across the floor like the pieces of his shattered trust. The betrayal struck him with an almost physical force. Words failed him, a lump rising in his throat. Ava reached out, her voice frantic. "Liam, I can explain," but he didn't stay to listen. Turning on his heel, he stormed out of the house, leaving behind the woman he thought he knew and the life he thought they shared. Liam drove aimlessly for hours, the world outside his windshield a blur. His mind raced with questions, each one cutting deeper than the last. How long had this been going on? Was it something I did? Was I enough? By the time he parked by the river, his once sharp architect's mind was a jumbled mess of pain and anger. The night crept in, wrapping him in its cold embrace as he stared at the water. He replayed the moment in his head, the laughter, the look of guilt on Ava's face, the stranger in his home. The image wouldn't fade, no matter how tightly he shut his eyes. His phone buzzed with messages from Ava, but he couldn't bring himself to read them. Eventually, he called the one person who had always had his back, Marcus. "I need help," Liam managed, his voice cracking. Marcus didn't ask questions. "Come over," he said firmly. At Marcus's place, the whiskey flowed as Liam recounted what had happened. Marcus listened, his expression darkening. "You didn't deserve this, Liam," he said finally, his voice steady. "But now you've got a choice: stay in the rubble or rebuild. It's going to hurt like hell, but you're stronger than you think." Liam didn't feel strong. All he felt was the weight of betrayal and the gaping hole where his trust had once been. But Marcus's words planted a tiny seed of hope, a whisper in the back of his mind that maybe, just maybe, he could rise from this. Sophia Carter was no stranger to whispers and side glances. At 16, she had mastered the art of brushing off rumors and snide comments, but the latest whispers were different. They were about her family. "Did you hear? Her mom's sleeping with some trainer." "Poor Liam," one classmate muttered in the hallway. Sophia froze, her fists clenching at her sides. "Say that again," she demanded, her voice low but dangerous. The other girl smirked, unbothered. "Just saying what everyone knows, Soph. Your mom's been caught. She didn't get to finish." Sophia's fist collided with her face, a burst of rage exploding after weeks of tension at home. The two tumbled to the ground, a flurry of fists and hair pulling until a teacher pried them apart. Sitting in the principal's office, Sophia stared at the floor, her knuckles raw and her heart heavier than ever. She'd never been in serious trouble before, but this time she didn't care. The betrayal she felt wasn't just about her mom's affair, it was about the cracks in the perfect family image they'd worked so hard to maintain. When Liam arrived to pick her up, his face was pale, his eyes hollow. "What happened?" he asked as they drove in tense silence. "Why don't you ask Mom?" Sophia shot back, her voice dripping with venom. Liam gripped the steering wheel tighter, unsure how to respond. He wanted to comfort her, to shield her from the storm, but he didn't know how. By the time they got home, Sophia had slammed her bedroom door, leaving Liam alone with his spiraling thoughts. Days passed before Liam could gather the strength to confront Ava. The house was no longer a home, but a battlefield of unspoken words and simmering anger. That evening, Liam finally broke the silence. "We need to talk," he said, his voice firm but trembling beneath the weight of his emotions. Ava looked up from the kitchen table, her eyes rimmed with red. She nodded, bracing herself. "I'm sorry, Liam," she began, but he raised a hand, stopping her. "Why?" he asked, his voice cracking. "How could you do this to us? To me? To Sophia?" Ava's lip quivered as she took a deep breath. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've been unhappy, Liam. For years. You're always working, always planning for the future. But we stopped being us a long time ago." Her words sliced through him, leaving wounds deeper than the betrayal itself. "So this is my fault," he snapped, anger bubbling to the surface. "I worked hard for this family, for you, and this is how you repay me." The argument escalated, both of them unleashing years of pent-up frustration. Ava accused him of emotional absence, while Liam accused her of selfishness. The air between them crackled with tension, each word cutting like a blade. By the end, they were both exhausted, their voices hoarse and their hearts heavy. There was no resolution, no easy answers, just the painful realization that their marriage was irreparably broken. As Liam walked away, Ava whispered through her tears, "I'm sorry." Liam didn't respond. He didn't have the strength to, nor did he know what to say. The person he thought he'd spend his life with had become a stranger, and the life they'd built together was crumbling before his eyes. The days after the confrontation were like trudging through quicksand. Liam moved through his routine mechanically: work, eat, sleep, though none of it felt real. The nights were the hardest, haunted by memories of what was and the painful reality of what had become. It felt as though the world he'd worked so hard to build had collapsed, and he was left sifting through the rubble, searching for pieces that still made sense. One evening, while unpacking a forgotten box in the attic, Liam stumbled upon an old sketch pad. It was from his college days, filled with architectural designs that had never been built and doodles of dreams that had long since been set aside. A faint smile crossed his face as he flipped through the pages, a reminder of a version of himself he hadn't seen in years. Without thinking, he grabbed a pencil and began to draw. At first, the lines were jagged, his emotions spilling onto the page in the form of chaotic shapes. But as the hours passed, the chaos began to take form: a simple house, small but sturdy, with clean lines and warm details. For the first time in weeks, Liam felt something other than pain. Encouraged by this small flicker of peace, he decided to take another step. At Marcus's insistence, he started therapy. Sitting in that quiet, judgment-free space, Liam found himself opening up in ways he hadn't expected. He spoke about his anger, his guilt, and his fear of the unknown. "How do I move forward when everything feels broken?" he asked his therapist one day. "By understanding that broken things can be rebuilt," she replied. "Not the same as before, but maybe even stronger." Liam left the session feeling lighter. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time he felt like he had the tools to face it. Ava Carter wasn't thriving either. While she had been the one to shatter their marriage, she hadn't anticipated the loneliness that would follow. Jake, the younger man she'd risked everything for, quickly grew distant once their affair was exposed. His carefree charm was replaced by awkward silences, and before long he stopped returning her calls. She tried to keep herself busy at her boutique, pouring her energy into work. But even there, whispers followed her. Customers she once considered friends avoided eye contact, and the staff exchanged knowing looks. Ava felt like she was drowning in a sea of judgment and isolation. At home, things were even worse. Sophia barely spoke to her, retreating to her room or leaving the house altogether. Every slammed door felt like a slap, every silent dinner like a punishment. Ava wanted to reach out to her daughter to explain, but how could she? What excuse could possibly justify the pain she'd caused? One night, after another failed attempt to talk to Sophia, Ava sat alone in the living room, a glass of wine in her hand. The house felt unbearably quiet, filled only with the echoes of her mistakes. Desperate for clarity, she reached out to a therapist, a step she should have taken long ago. In those sessions, Ava began to unravel the layers of her unhappiness. She spoke about the pressures of marriage, the loneliness she had felt even when Liam was home, and the impulsive decisions that had led her to this point. Her therapist didn't judge but guided her toward accountability. "It's not about erasing the past," her therapist said during one session. "It's about understanding it so you can build a better future for yourself and the people you've hurt." Ava wasn't sure if she deserved forgiveness, but she knew one thing: she couldn't keep running from herself. Sophia's world felt like it had been flipped upside down. Her mom's affair had shattered the illusion of their perfect family, and her dad's heartbreak weighed heavily on her. She channeled her anger and confusion into rebellion, skipping classes, snapping at friends, and spending hours locked in her room scrolling mindlessly through her phone. But none of it filled the emptiness she felt. One day, her art teacher, Ms. Reynolds, stopped her after class. "Sophia, I've noticed your sketches," she said, holding up a few pages Sophia had left behind. "You have real talent. Why don't you join the after-school art program?" Sophia scoffed. "What's the point? It's just drawing." "It's more than that, Ms. Reynolds said gently. "Sometimes, putting your feelings on paper can help you make sense of them." That evening, Liam knocked on her door. "Can we talk?" he asked hesitantly. Sophia hesitated but nodded. Sitting on the edge of her bed, Liam told her about how he'd started sketching again. "It doesn't fix everything," he admitted, "but it helps. Maybe it could help you too." Encouraged by her dad's vulnerability, Sophia gave it a shot. The next day, she joined the program, reluctantly at first. But as the weeks went by, she found herself looking forward to the sessions. Her anger and sadness flowed through her pencil, creating vivid, emotional pieces. One painting, in particular, caught everyone's attention: a stormy sea with a small beam of light breaking through the clouds. When she showed it to Liam, he was speechless. "That's beautiful," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's us," Sophia whispered. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of connection with her dad, a fragile but growing bond that gave her hope. Liam had always been the planner, the problem solver. But no amount of planning could have prepared him for this. For weeks, he grappled with what to do about his marriage. Should he stay for Sophia's sake? Could he forgive Ava? Or would staying together only deepen the cracks? One evening, sitting in his therapist's office, Liam voiced the question that had been haunting him. "How do you know when it's time to let go?" His therapist leaned forward, her expression compassionate. "When holding on does more harm than good for you and everyone else involved." Those words lingered in Liam's mind as he drove home. He knew what he had to do, even though it broke his heart. Filing for divorce wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. He consulted Marcus, who guided him through the process. "This isn't about winning or losing," Marcus reminded him. "It's about creating a stable future for you and Sophia." When Liam told Ava, the conversation was bittersweet. She didn't fight him. In fact, she seemed almost relieved. "I'm sorry it came to this," she said softly. "But maybe this is what we both need to find happiness again." The divorce was finalized within a few months. They agreed on joint custody of Sophia, who, though upset, seemed to understand. "I just want you to be okay, Dad," she said one evening, hugging him tightly. Liam moved into a smaller home, cozy and filled with light. It wasn't what he'd imagined for himself, but it felt right: a fresh start. As he unpacked boxes and arranged furniture, he realized he wasn't just building a new house, he was building a new life. The months following the divorce were a mixture of relief and adjustment for everyone. Liam moved into his new home, a modest house on the edge of town with a backyard big enough for a small garden. He spent weekends planting flowers and building furniture, activities that grounded him. The space was filled with sunlight and warmth, a reflection of his desire to create a life free from the shadows of his past. Sophia divided her time between her parents. At first, the back and forth was jarring, but over time she began to see the positives. At her dad's house, they spent time together cooking, hiking, and even painting. Liam discovered he loved abstract art, much to Sophia's amusement. "It looks like a toddler did this," she teased one afternoon, holding up his latest attempt. "Hey, that's avant-garde," Liam retorted with a grin. At her mom's, things were more subdued. Ava worked on rebuilding her relationship with Sophia, attending her art shows and making a genuine effort to be present. Though their bond wasn't fully healed, Sophia could see that her mom was trying, and that counted for something. Both Liam and Ava started therapy together, not to reconcile, but to learn how to co-parent effectively. It wasn't always smooth, but they made it work for Sophia's sake. For Liam, each small victory a shared laugh with Sophia, a productive conversation with Ava felt like proof that life could be rebuilt, one moment at a time. A year after the storm had passed, Liam found himself standing in an art gallery. The room buzzed with excitement as people admired the works of young, up-and-coming artists. Among them was Sophia, her painting of the stormy sea with a beam of light proudly displayed at the center of the room. Liam couldn't help but feel a swell of pride as he watched her talk confidently about her work to a small group of admirers. It was a stark contrast to the angry, withdrawn girl she had been months ago. Sophia spotted him and walked over, smiling. "What do you think?" she asked, nodding toward the painting. "I think it's incredible," Liam said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've captured something real." Sophia glanced at the painting, then back at him. "It's us, Dad. The storm, the light, it's what we've been through." Liam pulled her into a hug, his heart full. "You're my light," Sophie whispered. As the night wore on, Liam reflected on how far they had come. Life hadn't gone according to plan, but maybe that was the point. The storms had shaped them, but they hadn't defined them. Together, they had found a way to move forward, stronger and more connected than before. Thank you for joining me on Liam's journey of heartbreak, resilience, and growth. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and comment below. Your support helps us tell more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt content. Until next time, take care of yourselves and those you love.